Max Media Group and or their affiliate and subordinated ministries and or nonprofits. That being said, time for our opening music. They can't see us on Facebook yet. All they can do is they can read. That's YouTube right there. Over there. Here we go. Good morning. Coming to you live from Max Media Group headquarters here in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. It's the Morning Drive with Matt and Jay with your hosts, Matt and Jay. I have to move my face away from the microphone, otherwise it's really loud. It's a beautiful day in the Ozarks today. We got a couple of people in our studios today. We're really excited to have them. Godswas. I said that right. All right. The Godswas, Mexico area. David and Kelly. And they are missionaries from Mexico.
Yeah.
All right. Let me go ahead and get right back. I always wait till the hook on the song before I switch it down. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Drive with Matt and Jay. My name is Matt.
My name is Jay.
Now, usually that's where you would say, my name is David.
I'm David.
And I'm Kelly.
All right. They're naturals, Jay. They're naturals. Now, if we hadn't had everything set up right away, by the time you got here, we'd have you both sitting on the same side. I haven't actually ever sat over on that side yet, so it would be interesting to get everything. So tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Well, Dave and Kelly Godswa, we have been missionaries for 15 years, 13 of those in Mexico. We have 3 children, Rebecca, Joseph, and Jonathan.
That's who Rebecca, Joseph, and Jonathan are. That question's been answered.
Yeah, and we had been serving for those 13 years in Mexico on the Yucatan Peninsula, which is a part of Mexico that kind of forms the Gulf of Mexico just below Florida and across the water from Cuba. So that's where we've been serving for the past 13 years.
That's really cool. So how old are your children?
Want to answer that one?
Sure.
All right.
Our kids are 20, 18, and 17.
So one of them was raised pretty much their whole life over there.
Pretty close.
Yeah, pretty much Jonathan.
And then the rest of them, a large portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so they live in, now your older ones, they live in Mexico as well? Are they they're missionaries as well, correct?
Well, we believe that God calls families to go.
Oh, yeah.
They would be called missionary kids. Now, if they choose to continue to be missionaries, obviously they have to go through that process of, getting their credentials and everything. But, we believe God's got that heart in them. And, we have one, at least Rebecca, who wants to be moving that way
That's
as
awesome.
she goes further, yeah.
Yeah, my oldest son, he's decided that he wants to go to seminary and become a pastor.
Awesome.
And he's 17 now. He's writing music and he's leading worship.
Yeah.
And it's just so I can imagine as parents knowing that your children are working their way towards doing what you guys have had, that God gave you the heart to do.
Definitely.
And to serve. To see them wanting to serve in the same capacity has to be just an issue of pride, not like the bad pride, but
Right.
Blessed. You have to feel very blessed by that.
Definitely.
So, we're glad to have you guys here. I don't usually get flustered for some reason. Today I'm having a hard time talking.
Well, it's exciting for me. I know that, and so sorry if I seem so excited. It's just that I had a dream to become a missionary.
Awesome.
And it wasn't that I don't know. I had like a calling to it, but when I first believed when I was 18 and felt the Holy Spirit and His presence and realizing that God was real and true, then the urgency to spread the gospel became,
Definitely.
And so I became a Bible beater and a hypocrite really quickly, and didn't have the mentorship or the discipleship that I really needed at the time.
Yeah.
And was kind of on my own. And
Wow.
I'm always bullheaded. My opinion is what's most important to me, so I had those kind of problems and still do. How do you deal with those kind of things when you're out in the field and trying to spread the gospel? Do you see it as a challenge for yourself as well?
Well, I think my coming to the faith was probably similar. I was raised for 15 years with a traditional faith based mostly in kind of ritual routine practice. Family was a big part of that. But in coming to the faith, when I received the truth, I felt everybody needed to know this. And I was wondering why hadn't anybody shown this to me.
Right.
I think where we differed is I did have that discipleship that kind of steered me. And granted, you start off and you're pretty excited about it. You want to share
Morning,
this with
Steve.
everybody. And I was happy to do that. But it was good as well to have someone to be able to steer us, and then going into Bible school and understanding how that should work, and even then seminary afterwards was hugely formative for me.
So what led you to seminary and then becoming a missionary? Like, how did you arrive at that?
Yeah, well, it's amazing because I think that that path when you go into ministry, you think, well, for us, I mean, like for Kelly and I, when we started, I thought I was going to be coming. We were in Erie, Pennsylvania. Came to Springfield, Missouri, and we thought that it was going to be 4 years of, I was at Central Bible College. Kelly went to Evangel University, Evangel College at that time.
Right.
CBC.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that place even still open?
Well, it still exists. I mean, the campus is still there, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
been
over
sold.
by the fairgrounds, right?
It's no longer an Assemblies of God property
I
anymore.
would love to buy that and just
Yeah.
house just to house people.
You have
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
a homeless ministry.
It teach missionary
Sure,
work.
Sure, it is. It has been purchased. It is being used by another evangelical ministry, if I'm not mistaken. It's a Korean group that's come in to use that. Yeah,
That's
that
cool.
facility.
I go
so-
by Evangel every day on my way to work.
Do you
5 days a
really?
week. Yeah.
I've sang there numerous times in honor choir and stuff.
Nice.
But that's that's a beautiful chapel over there.
yeah.
Or I guess would you call it a temple?
no,
It's a-
it's the chapel.
Sanctuary is absolutely beautiful there.
Yeah, I used to clean that
It's huge.
that sanctuary.
My
years
sister
ago.
used to work for the Assemblies of God headquarters here,
Okay.
specifically in the missionary department years ago.
Very cool.
As far as like finances and stuff like that.
So do you remember a point in your education where you were kind of surprised at the direction God was sending you, that you said, wait, am I here for the right reason, and should I make some changes? Was there a point in your education that you came to that?
Well, I know for us, as we were going through our undergraduate, I was able to be in contact with some amazing professors. One of those, Vernon Purdy, who said, Dave, I really think you should try seminary. I think you would do very well. And academically, I excelled.
What's the difference between seminary and what you were already doing?
Bible college was for preparation, really for practical ministry, and they obviously the theory, the practice was there. All of those things were in place, but seminary gives you a little more time for kind of digging in a little bit deeper. So they emphasize biblical languages. There's a lot more opportunity for conversation. Your professors usually tend to be at a little bit higher level as far as
They're
their
more capable of finding an answer.
Correct. And I think it's not necessarily finding an answer. I think we spent more time finding answers in Bible college. I think it's really discovering the right questions. I mean, I don't think faith necessarily is always answered succinctly. There always
That's a great way to say it.
a satisfactory answer, and I think that we are always on this process of discovery, this journey of faith. But again, that seminary wasn't necessarily in our picture. That wasn't in our view. And
we grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania. So we traveled to go to college,
Yeah.
14 hours away.
yeah.
And
That's a real eerie place.
So you spent like the week
Strange.
at college and then the weekend at home?
we did not.
No.
Yeah, 14
We,
hours now.
Every day?
I mean, we came to Springfield, Missouri to
Oh,
go to
Yeah.
Evangel and to go to Central Bible College. I became a teacher.
Right.
So we were here, and in our idea, it was go to Springfield, Missouri, stay 4 years, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right.
Because Springfield, Missouri was just a place to study, to get our degree, and then move out from there.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so you're talking about the imagine. So when I talk to people, I talk about the life we imagine. So we have
Right.
these like
Yes.
wish lists on Amazon,
Sure.
and we think a life. We have imagine a life that's attached to each of these items, and if
That's
we
right.
have this item, this is what life will look like, which is rarely the same and
Mhm.
never the same. Really,
Mhm.
ends up being an attic full of stuff that you had got on Amazon
Sure.
instead of a life. And so is that what you're talking about? You had this idea of going for
Oh,
4
yeah.
years and
You've
then
got
you would,
your-
get a church in the States or
You've got your plan. This is how it's going to work. This is how you're told it's going to work.
right.
Hi, Steve McAllister, Steve Schultz. Dennis Everson is over there. He's on the computer. He's also in the room. Marcia Holland. Uncle Ray, morning.
That's who's he's listening.
Yeah, you'll hear me do that, so just ignore me whenever I start saying hi to people. Karen McIntyre, good morning. If you guys are wondering who's in the studio, just look down at the bottom left of the screen. You'll see it's David and Kelly Godswas.
Hello.
Is
Godswa.
Godswa.
That's right.
Okay, but so
That
the
was is the plural for your whole
The
family.
plural for the whole family.
Oh.
That's right.
I like
That's
it.
right.
Well, I will.
It throws people off sometimes, though.
Well, I'm going
Yeah.
to go ahead and fix that.
I thought that
because-
was the name of your organization.
Oh.
So yeah, but it is.
It is the
cool.
organization. It's the
Right.
family organization.
Yeah. And is there any more important family than
So what happened? So I'm sorry to.
organization than family?
But what happened? You were getting to how
Yeah.
all of a sudden some change occurred in your
So
plan.
I had mentioned already Vernon Purdy, one of the professors who was there at Central Bible College, who had encouraged me to try seminary. And he said, Dave, there's a scholarship for students who excel in
Full
undergrad.
ride scholarship.
Right. It was called the
Nice.
Distinguished AG Scholar
So
Award.
they already had a place for you. They said, "This is we can."
Well, he said, I will write you a recommendation letter. So I come home. We were married at this point. We had got married in our second year, the summer of my sophomore year there. And so I come home and I say, well, Kelly, what do you think about 3-4 more years in Springfield? And she was not that excited at that point.
Steve Schultz
It-
says
it
we
wasn't
support
in
them
mine.
at our church.
Awesome.
So
Right.
he goes to an Assemblies of God church in Willard.
Yes, they do. We're going
Yeah.
to be there December 1st in Willard at Carpenter's House Church, if I'm not mistaken. That's
yeah,
where they're
Steve
from.
Schultz. He's
Yeah.
a longtime friend of the shows. He used to be on the show all the time.
Very cool.
Hi, Steve.
So one of
Steve?
my goals is to try to get our listeners and our viewers to relate to you in some way. So what I think is interesting about that very point where you came to there, you're going home saying, hey, what about this idea for the dream? And she's watching the dream crumble. You see what I mean? So we have this idea,
Sure.
and I try to encourage people not to get those images of what tomorrow's supposed to look like, because it rarely looks like that. And I'm curious, did you find that you were in a better place to do what was really in your heart rather than what was in your dream?
Well, I mean, I was open to it, even though that was my initial gut reaction, I think. I was open to it. I said, apply. Yeah, do
Beautiful family.
So you
I'm
both
looking
went to seminary.
I'm looking at your website right now.
Hey, thanks, man.
it. I actually went to Evangel to become a math teacher, so I worked as a math teacher while he went to seminary.
That's
How
right.
great is that?
She supported my study habit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Math and I don't get
What
along.
an amazing.
I can do basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and all that stuff. But you get into that, I always had a hard time. Now, if I paid attention in school, I wouldn't have been able to. I wouldn't have failed. But I was just too lazy to learn all the different, like algebra, geometry.
This is
all
why
this.
I'm glad that we have a calculator on the cell phone. So
And I hardly ever use a calculator either. I guess I just don't do enough to really justify having to do a whole lot of math. I can do fractions.
But
I
when
can
you
do
need it,
fractions.
you need it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
definitely.
But I'm sorry, I have a tendency of getting off topic sometimes,
all
just
right.
for future reference.
But it's good. So I was wondering also, so you were getting to how all of a sudden something changed. You became a teacher, but not really. What you learned at school, you applied by becoming a teacher there. But
right.
that's not what you imagined.
Becoming a teacher
What you
was always my plan.
right.
I had a call in my life to missions as well. In my mind, I thought about teaching overseas. That was a possibility to teach overseas. So the becoming a math teacher part was still part of what I thought would happen. But I did it in the States.
Right.
I actually never ended up doing it overseas, but it was part of the plan because it paid the bills when
Right.
Absolutely.
Now, how hard
Nice,
was it?
cool.
Did you
Whose
guys
plan?
already know how to speak
Right.
Spanish before you went over there?
No, we did not. I was raised, my mother was from Venezuelan descent. She was born to immigrants in New York City, but they never taught her to speak Spanish. So I was 30 years old, in Costa Rica, learning to speak Spanish for the first time.
Oh wow.
I took 2 years in high school, but you know how that is.
Yeah, yeah. You're just trying to get a passing grade.
No, I
You know, just enough to
I was
ask.
Oh, you
kicked
never
out in the 9th grade.
You know, just enough to ask where the library is, where the bathroom is, and
Yes.
what time do you open or close, that
Those are
kind of stuff.
important questions.
Those are important questions. That's a couple things you need to know when you go into a new place. First of all, where's the restroom? And I
Did
think
you
that
find answers to that cultural shock? I mean, because part of school, do they prepare you for language? Like you were talking about language, and
Yeah.
and you would. So, I was curious about that because you can go to another country where the culture is so different, and you all of a sudden are
Morning,
lost.
Susan
The
Burroughs,
whole,
Linda Fleetwood.
like how
Dorothy
even how you
Fuller.
maybe introduce yourself can be different in that way. Did you?
Yeah, I think one of the things, and it's difficult
Jessica
for a
Bastion.
missionary, is that you
Welcome.
find yourself being built up. So you answer the call, and you go through a process that we call itineration, where you're going from church to church to church and receiving support, and you're built up to a point, and of course you're speaking the message. This is the vision that we have, what we see God doing through us. But then you reach one of those other situations when you get to the country and you realize you can't even express yourself like a kindergartner could.
Right.
And so it becomes doubly difficult and frustrating. You want to be able to do this thing that you feel God's called you to do, yet you can't do that. You have to go through that period of learning the language. And it's
How
really
long did that take?
we spent
11 months.
Yeah,
Almost
11
a year.
Yeah.
In
Wow.
Costa Rica it's a language school.
Jay,
but
did you put their names on the screen?
I'm working on that.
Okay.
I just.
Sorry, I got a request from Jim. Could you put? I've got
Yeah.
their names on the screen. Sorry, gotta take care of that. You know what's really funny? Also, if you think about it, Moses, he had a hard time talking.
Yes, he
You know,
Yeah.
and if God made your mouth.
And yet I wonder about that, because Stephen said he was a man of, and I can't read, I don't have that phrase right there, powerful in word and deed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's just an excuse
It probably
that was
was.
there. Yeah.
He's like, I mean, that's got to be a daunting task that was put ahead of him. And then he's like, well, hey, my brother Aaron,
There you go.
he speaks a lot better because he probably did stutter.
It's possible.
Which
Yep.
one of these would be the best way for our listeners and viewers to contact you if they were going to?
Yeah.
I've got room for just one. That's why.
Sure. If they want to contact, you can go through our
DiscipleMexico.org.
yeah, disciplemexico.org. That
if
would
they go
probably
on
be
the
best way,
site,
yeah.
then they can find the other
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, the other
Yeah.
stuff is all linked in there. Yeah.
All right. Well, somebody posted your profile for people to check out on agmd.org.
Yep. Yep.
But I'm going to go ahead and put that up on the banner up here so people can go to it. Because, I mean, this is great. Very rarely do we get, missionaries in here.
Oh.
We had another one that Dennis brought from, he was from Rwanda,
Oh, sweet.
Africa. That show got like 5,000 or 6,000 views, too. Yeah.
That's
That is,
cool.
we do appreciate what you guys are doing, because I think that there needs to be even more missionaries in Mexico.
Absolutely.
As we've talked about the border crisis and stuff like that. Now, does that affect your work at all?
I'll tell you, I think that for us, those things, they show the need, obviously, that's there in Mexico. We would love to be more involved in some of those areas. One of the things that we deal with is precisely that, a lack of personnel to be able to minister in some of those areas. Our churches are definitely responding in those areas and trying to meet those needs, but we would love to be able to have a more coordinated outreach. And we're still exploring that, but we definitely need more personnel to be able to reach in and to minister
I
to
think
those
the border
people.
issue has affected that.
Has affected which? I'm sorry.
Getting more people. Well, because I guess passports and all that are much more difficult to get than they used to be.
I think for U.S. People and people who are coming from the United States to go to Mexico, we haven't seen an issue yet. We haven't seen any problems as far as getting workers to the country. Obviously, moving from Mexico to the United States, it's been a little more difficult.
Or is it that transition to the island that you had to go to and learn the language? Is that part of getting people?
Sure.
problem?
Definitely, and the formation, because if you're coming without that language background, you're spending at least those 11 months. So even when you have a crisis situation that happens, to be able to move people into that situation, be able to minister, there may be somebody who wants to go, but it requires them, at least a year to be able to just get the language, and that's not talking about raising support.
Can somebody be helpful without having gone through that part? When you say crisis situation, I mean, I don't know what that means.
Sure. We have organizations that have responded in that way. I know Convoy of Hope is affiliated with the Assemblies of God, and they work to handle crisis situation and use volunteers to do those kinds of things and respond in those ways. But to be able to have a sustainable ministry there requires that formative process, requires those relationships, requires as well that language to be able
And
to
in the
Communication.
field would
Yeah.
not be the right place to do that.
What's that?
And in the field with you wouldn't be the right place to do that. So
We have, and that's the thing. So part of that formation has to happen off the field. Part of that, whether that would be, building those relationships, the network with churches. That's not something that can happen
Overnight,
Yeah, that has to happen. That support raising that has to happen off the field. But once they're on the field, we see people who are, receiving that formation as they go along. We have people, several categories of missionary. We have missionaries, associates, short-term missions, missionary associates, and then we have what were called appointed missionaries or appointed general missionaries. And each one of those has a certain number of requirements to be able to get into that category. So we have several that are moving through that process on the field, receiving that formation, whether it's theological training, practical ministry, skills. Those things can happen on the field, but there are certain things that you just have to do prior to. Yeah, that's correct.
So how does that reach your challenge with your relationship with God? So when you're on your knees facing these issues in the field, do you wonder sometimes, why aren't these people coming? Why are you calling them, Lord, and how come they're not here now? What's your plan?
Well, I mean, one of the things
Face that.
that we've done is prioritize that prayer aspect. Kelly, I don't know if you want to share about what we've been doing more recently.
Well, there's a ministry through Chi Alpha, which is a ministry to college students on the college campuses, and they have put in effect something called 10-2. I don't know if you've seen the marathon stickers that say like 26.2 miles
marathon.
and 30 point. Okay, so they made one that's 10.2, and it refers to Luke chapter 10, verse 2. And that has to do with praying to the Lord to send workers into his harvest field and maintaining that as a daily prayer. So at 10:02 every day,
Luke 10:2.
we have set our watches. So there's an alarm that goes off, and we'll just pause. And daily we will pray that God sends workers into his harvest field.
Yeah, Luke chapter 10, verse
So
2.
this is a big deal to you.
Yeah,
These were his instructions to them that the harvest is great, but the workers are few. So pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest. Ask him to send more workers into his field.
Yeah.
Now go and remember that I am sending you out as lambs among wolves. Sorry, I always continue to
Well,
read on.
I love that, because I think that in the same way that we pray to send workers to the harvest, we prepare ourselves to respond as well to that prayer request.
Yeah.
I teach in Bible school in Mexico. I was teaching in Mérida. That's the capital city of the state of Yucatan. And I would use that passage. We would memorize that passage, but I would say, well, have you read further?
Right.
Those disciples who were praying were responding to their own prayer request.
Yeah.
They were preparing themselves to go. So yeah,
And sometimes the answer, even though you're kind of begging for help, does it seem like the answer is, well, I sent you?
Right.
that as well.
Yeah.
That as well. We continue to work, understanding that we desperately need more help. But that doesn't mean that we throw up our hands or we just wait for reinforcements.
Yeah.
We
Right.
continue to do the work, understanding that the Lord is the one who's going to be touching hearts and minds and lives.
He
What
will
does
give
that
you the
look like?
multiply.
What does that look like in those communities when you're when you're ministering to an individual, and there's a change, and the Spirit of God is making a difference in one person's life, and then they're going out into their community. Do you get to see that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've seen that.
See, math is really important. There's that exponential.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I guess I
right.
can do basic math. Basic math. Common Core, forget about it. I don't have any idea what that means. I know it probably makes it more confusing. But
Sorry, I'm a little ADHD too.
yeah.
But that idea of reaching one who then reaches others has been something that we've been trying to put into practice there on the Yucatan Peninsula in church planting. And the church planting that we're doing isn't building a building and then hoping that someone is going to fill that building or some worker would go, but it's training those people who are in congregations to see the need and to meet that need in that other congregation, in that other village that doesn't have a church. Then training those people, teaching those people, seeing the transformation in them, so that then they'll reach others. So it becomes a movement of people that can affect, and that exponential growth can happen. Definitely.
I learned something.
I'm going to do a real quick commercial. This show is sponsored by naturalsolutionstore.bz.
You ready?
Yeah, go ahead. I gotta. I usually have to figure out what I'm going to talk about. Like I said, I'm a little flustered today. That doesn't happen very often. So let's get this on over. So the show is brought to you by naturalsolutionstore.bz, where there's plenty of stuff on there for you to try and help you get healthier. Again, like I said yesterday, there's even hot sauce on there. Yeah. Hot sauce from Belize. There's this time of year, it's good to get that all-natural cold and sinus. It's all natural. There's no actual chemicals in it. This is refined by God himself, that's nature. So it's that time where your sinuses are going to get all kind of crazy. And again, with the weather changing the way it does here in Missouri, you would probably do well to get yourself some super hemp balm as well, because that stuff works really good on aches and pains and sore joints and just whatever ails you. My back would be hurting really bad right now if it wasn't for that. So go online, www.naturalsolutionstore.bz, and pick up a bottle of something today. Back to you guys. All right, so it was on my face. That's when we do the commercials. It shows up as on my face.
Did you see it here?
Yeah, I just saw the little banner on the bottom. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, this isn't anything like a regular, like you would imagine a studio to be. The old studios were all analog and stuff. And still to this day, you go in there, there's boards everywhere. It's all just done right here on this little.
Nice.
It's nice. It is really.
So okay,
if
back
I can
on.
learn to do it, it's easy.
Back to the conversation at hand. So, you guys actually you go out and just walk around the towns and stuff and talk to people and pray for people?
Well, we look at ourselves as facilitating ministry among those people who are we call it the indigenous church principle, the idea that we're creating a church that is self-propagating, self-sustaining, and self-governing. So we come alongside the national church.
Teach them to fish.
Teach and we train. We work alongside them as well. So we do go out and we pray in the villages. We do that. We do that work.
Yeah.
However, what we're trying to do is to see a Mexican church that rise up, that has a Mexican DNA characteristic, that redeemed nature, so that they can reach their own people.
Yeah.
So in as much as we love that personal contact, what we're trying to facilitate is that those people will reach their own people, and that it would be that Mexican face that's praying, that Mexican hand that's reaching out. That's really what we would love to be able to see, and it is happening. And it's happening. That's the encouraging.
So planting local churches,
absolutely,
not a foreign church on Mexican soil, but Mexican church on Mexican soil.
That's right. That's right.
So I can see that. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I would love one day to be able to come out and visit you guys. God, if it's really God's will,
It's way down there, though.
Yeah, that's all right.
Ride our motorcycles.
Yeah,
Take
motorcycles.
more than 2 weeks, though.
Probably have to take a bus or two.
Yeah, it would take more than 2 weeks.
Depending on where you guys are going. I mean, it's a couple of days from the border to Mexico City. It took us
4? Is it 4 to get out?
4
that's
days.
driving straight through.
4 days driving, not
Well,
driving at
drive
night.
during the day.
Yeah, drive during the day, staying on the toll roads to get to Yucatan when we were.
Yeah, because there's obviously there's a danger there driving at night, right?
there?
Definitely. I mean, there are dangers when it comes to simply, there can be problems with the road, but at the same time, that's when some of the security issues happen, even on the main roads. Definitely, we always advise our
And never travel alone.
correct. It's good to be and
See,
to
I'm
let people know
surprised
where you're
you're
going.
not talking about wild animals because I motorcycle camp.
Okay.
So would I be more concerned about the cartels or
He's
the
been
wild
chased by a
animals?
possum before.
I've had something sniffing at
I think
the
it might have
vent
been
in
an
my
armadillo.
tent one time. It was snorting so much air in and out of the tent I could almost feel it. And I thought, what is that? It can't be. It's got to be a deer
Okay.
because the vent's this high off the ground. So it's got to be something big enough. But then why would a deer be sniffing at my tent?
Yeah.
I was like, maybe it was a black bear. I don't know.
Oh.
But
Hungry.
no, I was fine. And
I wasn't
everything was
camping,
safe,
but I was chased by a groundhog.
So that's off topic.
I saved it from the neighbor's dog. This is the dog I was playing with, and it was a standoff. I mean, these things are. Have you ever stared down a groundhog?
It's big.
Those
They're
things
big.
are.
Yeah.
They're intense. They're like, "What's up?"
It's like a beaver with a regular tail.
Yeah, yeah. But and I chased the dog off because the dog is one of those. I was afraid he was going to hurt the groundhog. And then after the dog ran away, I'm sitting there like, and I'm talking to the groundhog. What are you doing still standing here? Go before the dog comes back, you know? And then I'm like, come on, go, right? And then I kicked a little grass at it, and it chased me back into my car. I probably jumped about 15 foot that day.
He was trying to say, I had this dog handled. What are you
Yeah.
doing coming after me?
Yeah, he was ready to box.
That's right.
But anyways, I know that's off topic, but I just wanted, he's not the only one that's been chased by animals.
No, I got chased. I did that. Well, that one was just sniffing, but then that same time, I had a armadillo come out of the woods, try to take
It was an armadillo.
try to take my my flashlight.
Okay, I don't think I've ever seen a live armadillo.
Yeah?
They're weird.
Yeah, I've only seen them dead.
Have you ever seen a possum?
I have.
Okay, imagine a possum with armor.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen
weird.
them. I've seen them dead. I mean, I know what
Oh,
they
yeah,
look like.
yeah. They
but
look
I
like
just-
roly-polies.
Well, here's how they are, right? Okay, so if you're walking through the woods with your flashlight,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, "Hey, man, cool light," and they come out there to you. To
I love his
They want
interpretation.
to talk
of,
about it. They want to talk about this light that you carry.
you're the light bringer.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And so, but then it realized that I was one of them nasty humans, and it ran away.
Okay.
But it
So
came-
what kind
it
of,
wanted to-
have you guys ran into any dangerous animals out there?
Dangerous animals. What would be?
Well,
probably in Costa Rica.
yeah,
is
I'm
our
just thinking
dangerous
in
animal
Costa Rica
story,
when
Yeah.
we
Oh
were
yeah,
in the-
Costa Rica.
Yeah.
That's got quite a few dangerous animals,
Like
if I'm not
sharks?
mistaken.
No, actually, I'll let you go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, let's hear this, Kelly.
Well, okay, so we were staying at a hotel, and the hotel had trails through the forest behind it
In
that
Costa Rica,
Costa Rica.
people could walk on, and so we did
pretty
that
thick
because
jungle there, right?
Yeah.
we liked outdoors, although we don't have experience with the whole camping. I mean, we've done it a few times, but not. Anyway, we were walking in this jungle, forest, woods, I don't know what you want to call it, but
Yeah.
and I see like the green foliage moving like over in the distance, and almost like see a brown fur, I want to say.
Yeah.
Brown fur, but I couldn't see any like
So it's kinda like
creature,
Jurassic
animal,
Park,
or
you
whatever.
know.
Yeah.
And I freaked out a little bit because
Well,
It was,
Justifiably
it was,
so.
it was
in the
less
woods.
the seeing, it was more the hearing, I think, for
Yeah.
you, because they were starting to make this grunting sound.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it might be an ape variety.
No, it was an ape.
No.
It was a wild pig.
It was a
Oh,
Yeah.
those are
Yeah.
those are more dangerous than
Yeah.
apes, I think.
Yeah. So
warthog, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, warthog.
Why? When he was a young warthog. I think about that every time I see a warthog. I think it's Timon and Pumbaa from the
you
Lion
go.
King movie.
There you go.
Not a sponsor. Disney is not a sponsor.
He's kind of cute, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I was scared of this,
Yeah, these
whatever
guys-
it was.
It
And,
wasn't so cute.
So we were walking back, and there was another couple, and they wanted to continue on because they wanted to see these wild pigs, and we were going back for. I said, well, maybe we'll see at breakfast. If you're not there, we'll let the hotel people
No.
go and do a search for you.
Mauled
Afterwards.
by a pig.
We found them later. We saw them later. We found them later.
Yeah.
We saw them later.
We found them later.
That
was
is
left
how
of them?
rumors get started.
No,
Yeah.
we saw them later, and they said, "Yeah, we didn't go that way either. We turned around and we walked away."
Oh, they're very vicious.
Oh, yeah.
And when we talk to somebody there about it, they're like, "Oh, you were lucky. Not
To
many
see.
people get
Oh,
to see."
Probably
a
more like
warthog.
lucky
Like,
you didn't get mauled by
There
a.
you go.
Exactly.
There you
'Cause
go.
those tusks may not look that bad, but boy, they know how to use them, and
Yep.
they're
So
vicious.
we are getting close to running out of time. Coming on the show today, is there anything that you would want our listeners and viewers to know that you would like to tell them about what you do and the kind of support you need and how they could be a part of it?
Sure. Well, I think for us, it's still communicating the reality that Mexico needs workers. That we are. I think what a lot of people look at Mexico, they look at it as a vacation spot, or they look at it as a problem. A country full of problems. I think those are the two stories.
I think the
that
media does tell us that.
Yeah.
You get a fear of the cartels and then of joblessness and low incomes and poverty. You see all those kinds of issues in the media all the time.
Yeah.
And immigration, like everybody's trying to leave. You're trying to reach people while their back's turned and they're walking away, right?
Yeah.
That's the image you get. So what would you say is
But
wrong about
Mexico is a nation of 130 million people.
Wow.
113 million would not be in relationship with Jesus. They have a form of religion, but they do not have a relationship with God. We have 3 million people who would be considered unreached people groups, and huge needs throughout the country. And yet it is a rich culture. It is if you would be in any place in Mexico, you would find there are people who are welcoming and who are hospitable, wonderful people.
Very
but again,
generous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who need Jesus.
Can I tell you? So I learned this thing recently. I have real
He just
problems
got
with
excited.
communication. I get to talking and don't listen and all that. So I'm learning this thing about communication, and I have this relationship that initially at work started really difficult. We disagreed on everything politically, and the politics were so vicious all the
Curtis
time
Prince.
that was what everybody was
Tanner
talking about.
Gibbs is on.
So we had this
Awesome.
really challenging
Tom Young.
relationship, though I enjoyed it
Dennis Code.
because I like debate, and so does she. So we had this real challenge, and then our relationship style always started the same way. So initially, when we met, we always kind of had this clashing confrontation, and the difficult issues were always the ones on our minds. But I love this person and care for her and wanted to have a relationship, but this was kind of in the way all of a sudden. I started to realize, and I found this information about relationship styles, and so it was really my approach, and not getting to stating my actual true intentions and what I want. And so I realized this by studying this thing about relationship style and communication style, and so I finally just said, look, I like you, and I want to be your friend, and this thing, the way we always talk, is not how I want to talk with you.
Yeah.
It's not what I want this to be.
Yeah.
And that really made a difference, and it changed something. So, but my intention was that I wanted to be friends and be able to talk to this person because they were willing to talk. They were always a challenge, always learning something, and so I enjoy that kind of relationship. But then the initiative. So I wonder if that can help you in the field, like,
Absolutely.
because the relationship changes.
Yeah.
And you sometimes don't realize that change and are stuck on that that initial form of talking.
And we talk about, we share with this idea of incarnational ministry, and I think that's how God led. He didn't lead trying to fix things.
Right.
He came and he lived among us. And I think that's what you're expressing. You're saying, I want to lead with that intention to have a relationship with the people that I'm interacting, and that's the way that we approach this. We don't go to Mexico. We say, well, because it's a problematic country and we want to fix things. That's not the way that we do that. We go there. We live because we want to incarnate Christ. In that situation, we know it's Jesus that's going to transform. We know it's the Holy Spirit that's going to make a difference in that society. in just the same way that he's making that difference among us here in the United States. So I think that's definitely something that we're doing there, and as we see more missionaries who are going into, that's what we're encouraging, that we have a relationship with those people, see them as they are, and understand that God is going to be working and meeting them in the same way.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you'll become a permanent part of this community? Is that...
We'll continue to maintain our citizenship in the United States. We continue to have a relationship with our churches in the United States. Is this a lifetime calling?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which
Absolutely.
is wherever you are.
Correct.
I've found that. And in
Correct.
recovery for alcoholism, I was told that is committing your life to God and His work and His will doesn't mean you're going to be on the South Pole preaching to penguins. It means that wherever you are, every step you take in your life,
Yeah.
you are a representative of God and a witness, and looking for that end goal
Yeah.
is that someone would be saved and come to worship God.
I think it's
And-
also
No, you go ahead.
it's beautiful what you said about you were learning about communication styles, and I think anything we can learn about how we're different, our personalities, communication styles, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
can help us to relate to other people, to see things maybe like they see them,
Yeah.
and that will help us to communicate and to share what's really on our hearts.
Yeah, yeah, because then I think the reaction that she had to that was to be more open about herself, and that was because she was like, "Oh, you want to be my friend?" Well, and so she tried to be more of a friend. It's still a challenge the way I communicate, and I still have to remind myself and say, "Okay, this is supposed to be a progression where where something changes, and we get to be close enough that I can try to introduce to her that God is real, that He loves me, that He loves her, and that that He is actually alive and well and in my life, that
Yeah.
He's not just an imagining. He's a person,
Right.
and I have a relationship, and He loves me, and He has power too. He
Yeah.
has tremendous power to make change in my life,
Yeah.
and so I want to honor Him too, and that by honoring Him, my life is more abundant. So you want people to see that in the ministry that I do as a cashier,
Sure.
here in the States. That's
Definitely.
really where my slow roll ends up coming, because I can get fired for saying, "Oh, Jesus, come to church," and all that all the time. We'll lose customers over that.
Sure.
Especially with the political environment we have today.
Yeah.
I about got fired from McDonald's when I was 16 for that. I worked in drive-through. That's back when they did face-to-face, And people say, "Why are you so happy all the time?" I'll tell you why. Because of God. That's why.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's, of course,
Well,
I
they
fell
asked the
away.
question.
Yeah, they asked the question. That's the only reason I didn't get fired. I told them they could fire me if they want. And then I fell away for a long time.
Do you find the
got-
laurels challenging? Like, see, I've had a long period of my life too where I wasn't pursuing God's will and God's work and all that, and so I had experienced the Lord, become convicted, been studying the Word of God, and then kind of went back to my laurels, my usual life, and life became about me for a long time and family and everything. Do you sometimes find that to be a challenge to maintain the focus?
Yeah, I think that's a challenge for any Christian.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
so too. Yeah.
We're constantly being invited into a deeper relationship, but I think that it's so easy, especially in society that we're in, to be distracted, to be pulled, to be moved, and to put yourself into it, that kind of I got to do what's urgent, and you let aside what's really important. And so I think that with each season, we're coming now into the Christmas season, Thanksgiving, we're doing that. You use those opportunities to kind of reset that clock, and you say, you know what? Yeah, what are the priorities? Where should I be? What's really important, and what's going to really serve as that foundation for everything that we do.
Yeah.
And I think that really, in the more that we serve, the more we realize if those areas of our lives, serving and study and prayer, if those aren't constantly undergirded, if they're not constantly being strengthened, then we're going to find ourselves not excelling in the other areas where, we're looking at a performance thing, whether it be speaking or it be teaching or it be working with other missionaries. Those all have to be fed by that well that we're digging of the relationship with Jesus. Yeah,
So the support that you really need is people.
definitely.
Because I think that is what I've learned from this whole thing, and there was so many things that I wanted to get more into, like the school and the change to seminary,
Yeah.
and your relationship as a husband and wife, and then you becoming a teacher. Those are all amazing subjects that could take up a whole hour easily. But I found what stood out to me the most was that you said about the prayer, Matthew
Luke.
10, Luke 10,
Luke
2.
10:2.
Is Luke 10:2 about and to be a focus of your life, to take that time of day and that scripture and the prayer
Yeah.
really demonstrates concretely how much more missionaries are needed in
Yeah.
the world today. And then
Definitely.
the numbers, how you looked at the size of the whole nation and the comparison of how many are not Christian. But you also mentioned that they're spiritual, so they may be seeking
Yeah,
and being
This is true.
yeah. Yeah.
So consider, and we have a lot of people in seminary that we know because of the work that we do here in the United States that are going to it and considering it and have been through it. Somebody who's been through seminary already and hasn't considered being a missionary, would they be in a better position or jump started in some way?
I would say that Bible background, the practical ministry aspect, those are all things tools that we pick up as we go through Bible school and seminary, and then serving in the local church. Those are all assets, and to be able to have that, and then coming to that vocation, where you say, yeah, I'd love to be a missionary. Those are definitely pluses, to go to before you go to the field. Definitely.
Okay. Well, I will commit to talking about missionary work
Awesome.
more at church and in the places that I go and foreign. Not because I can actually make a donation or in any way contribute personally, but that I think awareness is important.
Definitely.
We're not aware enough of our missionaries and the work that they're doing, and I think if more people knew and saw it and understood that really the struggle we have here ends up being really much the same, only there may be an opportunity to do it in a much different way that is more fulfilling and that God is calling them to. They're just kind of not seeing it or ignoring
And another thing, calling out to all of our prayer warriors.
Yeah, prayer.
Be sure and keep Kelly and David, right?
Dave works too.
Dave.
David. Yep.
Keep
Yep.
them in your prayers. Keep them and their family in your prayers. That they maintain, that God maintain that hedge of protection over them and their families, and that He continues to send people their way that want to become warriors for Christ. And one thing I was going to say earlier, because we're almost out of time. If you guys had only reached one person in the last 15 years that you guys have been doing this, it still would have all been worth it. I remind myself of that all the time, because when we had the band ministry, sometimes we can be a little bit disheartened, whenever nobody comes forward, and whenever you're not really, sometimes you don't feel like you're reaching anybody. Of course, that's the enemy trying to defeat you, and he doesn't have to try very hard. We're bad enough on ourselves, but I want to continue. I want to continue to pray for you guys until you guys tell me to stop, which will probably be never. And I want you all to do the same. Put them on your prayer lists, because we got to pray for our missionaries. If we can't go out and actually do it ourselves, we have just as much power in our prayers. And we can do just as much with our prayers, because God hears us if we intercede for them as well. So,
Thank you, Matt.
that being said,
This is a good scripture to read too.
which
For our
scripture?
daily scripture. What's on the card?
And I have other sheep that are not of this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. What's really cool is we're the sheep from the other fold, and He brings us in,
Yep.
and His other sheep welcome us. If you're not welcoming other people to your fold, then probably should hit your knees, folks.
Yeah.
Let's hit our knees anyways, because that's prayer is probably, besides accepting Christ as our Lord and Savior, prayer is one of the biggest weapons in our arsenal
Definitely.
against the enemy. And
And there is an enemy.
And
There
we
is.
we came to Jesus through prayer. It's by crying out to Him
yeah,
that He meets us and that He redeems us. Definitely.
yeah.
Prayer is essential.
Man,
It's
I wish
quite
we
an
had 2
literal
hours to talk to you
introduction.
guys today.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how long are you guys going to be in town?
We are working right now to raise support to return to the field. We'll be here through June of 2020 doing that work.
So it's
yeah.
financial support primarily.
Financial support
and people.
Absolutely, people.
I got a question.
We're advocating for Mexico right now. That's what we're doing.
I believe
Good.
Jim had missed it. He says, what do you actually do daily, and where are you guys doing this? So you're in...
We are on the Yucatan Peninsula for 13 years. We have recently made a transition to become area directors, Mexico area
So you're
directors.
church planters?
So, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working to coordinate ministry with the other 25 missionary units that serve
wow.
throughout the country. So, a little bit more of an administrative role, and yet working with the national church we serve as a liaison between the missionary and the national church, the Mexican Assemblies of God, the indigenous church in Mexico. And so we're going to be doing that. So our day-to-day is going to be slightly different than it was on the Yucatan Peninsula. Our day-to-day was obviously, getting up in the morning, spending that time with the Lord. I would be serving in the Bible school, teaching, training. I was working with our district, our district leadership in doing the church planting. We were part of the national or the district evangelism team, doing church planting and training. And so that was our day to day there in the Yucatan.
Good question, Jim.
Yeah.
So that music means it's time for us to get out of here.
All right.
I wish we had another 2 or 3 hours to sit here and talk to you guys.
Definitely could be a long form.
You can feel the presence of God, like the Spirit in you, And so anyways, too sad. We have to get out of here. I'd like
Thank you,
to
guys.
thank everybody for joining us on the Morning Drive today. We'll be back on tomorrow, same time, same channel. Be sure and tune in next for something to celebrate with Tom and Amber. So again, Dave, Kelly, thank you so much for being on here. You're welcome on here. We might want to get you on a video call someday while you're out there in Mexico.
Awesome.
So
great.
we do have the technology now to do so.
Right.
But anyways, until then, God bless you and keep you, everyone. We love you. My name is Matt,
My name is Jay.
Dave.
And Kelly.
and this has been The Morning Drive.